Again, thank you, and please continue to help us if you can. Continue to attend, continue to support us financially, however you can do that. You know what you can do and what you can't do. Do that. Don't do that. This morning's Dharma talk title or topic is, there could be other topics for this, but this particular one is Dharma Questions. Questions about the Dharma, either in an interview with the teacher, questions, or in this situation where the teacher is sitting here and giving the talk about the Dharma. And you're put in a position of asking questions. Lots of ways to look at this, and we can have some Q&A about it, perhaps. The reason this came up is yesterday, several people said to me, it's interesting in the retreat yesterday, there's all these people, as many as there are here, maybe more, and so few questions. And especially from people who could ask questions that would not only be helpful maybe to them, but to helpful to everyone who's hearing that interchange, because that Q&A, sometimes the Q&A part of the teaching is the most meaningful or powerful. Several ways to look at this, as I've said. And I also want to say in the same area, I have people come into the Hojo having a Dokusan and say, I don't have any questions. But that's very, very situational. I'm not asking anybody to ramp up questions. Don't do that. Receive as much as you can, and you'll get to an area where I can't receive that because they don't understand all I can really receive there is my lack of understanding, which might be appropriate in that situation. If you received vows, especially formally, either jukai or full ordination as a monk, go to the 8th precept. What is it? You're a monk. Tell me what the 8th precept is. Tell me what the 8th precept is.
No hoarding materials or teachings.
So you don't hoard the teachings. You might say, I'm not really teaching, but the question you asked, the question you could ask, could bring out an aspect of the teaching that may not click with you so much, but someone else hearing that, it's helping them see more deeply. This is called Sangha. This is why Sangha is so very important. One of the reasons. And the other reason is it's a way of meeting the rest of the world in the spiritual path. Hard to go to a mountaintop and connect with the world, but the Sangha will help you. No hoarding materials or teaching. So you may never have thought about that when you sit there and have a question, but I'll look silly. Or I have a question, but I really should know this. This is a total misunderstanding of what this is. Or I'm just embarrassed. That would be my version in the 1970s when I was studying under Trungpa Rinpoche. I was just too embarrassed. But I never had anyone address that. Had my teacher, and I'm not saying he didn't because he talked a lot, wrote a lot, or else had his books, had his teachings transcribed, may have mentioned that, but I never had any teacher directly say, you need to interact with the Sangha and with the teacher around the Dharma. Don't hoard the teacher. And some of you, quite a few of you, are really, really knowledgeable. You could get up here and give a talk on any topic in the Dharma. I know you personally. I could say, get up here and talk about the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 12 Links. You could do it. Most of you, when I say not most of you, but most of the people I'm referring to could do this without any notes. You just sit up here and begin to hold forth on those because they've been studying it not only with me, but on their own. Some people for years and years and years, making it a major part of their life. Don't hold back. Don't worry about looking too shiny or something, or too, presumptuous. I remember being in Shambhala. I think it was before it was called Shambhala. Being at a Dharma yeah, it was Dharma meeting in Boulder back in the 70s. I don't know when it was, but sitting there and being in a room full of 40, 50 people I did not know, maybe a couple, and trying to come up with a question that I could ask that no matter how I said that or what the response was, I would not embarrass. Isn't that an interesting way? If I ask this question, then any response is not going to put me on the spot or embarrass me. That's how insane I was at that time. Is that insanity here? Yes, it is. But I'm looking at it. I'm no longer running away. I don't care how I feel. I don't care if I get embarrassed. I don't care if pride shows up. I don't care. Well, I'm saying not dismissively, but the positionality of a separate self is not here in terms of being convincing or believable or a reference point. No credentials in particular. And I actually think of particular people in here, and I'm not going to go in that direction to any particularity, that I know them well enough. I know how their understanding is working for them right now. They are not necessarily liberated. If they were liberated, they probably wouldn't even attend this. Or they might. Probably not. That if they were to ask questions about the topic that either I'm talking about or Chazan when he's sitting here is talking about, or any during the monk training, any of the monks are talking about, actually ask questions about it. I've even said it very deliberately and literally, come and get me, put me on the spot. And I say the same thing with in the monk training, put these monks on the spot. If you don't ask questions and interact with them and put them in that over and over again, that position of being up in front, having to talk about the three poisons. And I'm not saying go after them and be aggressive and think of ways to embarrass them, but I'm saying go in there and interact. This is why it's so important to have a Sangha and study, as we do with book studies, not just studying the book in the corner, with your cup of tea all by yourself, reading over and over again a particular topic or a Dharma book, Dharma teaching, but to actually talk with others. And I've said, coming in and sitting down and listen to people discuss aspects of cutting through spiritual materialism and really not having questions, that's okay. That's going to happen. But also it can come up where you actually do have a question, or you hear questions go back and forth between two people, and it's about the participation there that's important, not about getting somewhere. When you say, I don't understand, that's awareness. That's not negative. And if you say, I understand, that's awareness. That's not positive. Look closely. Realize your true nature. Don't miss your life by thinking it should be this way or that way. However it's showing up is exactly what it needs to be. Ouch. It's exactly what it needs to be. Question. Yes, sir.
Michael Bowing. I'm very careful about asking questions
Why?
because questions interrupt.
Why?
You didn't mean why?
I said, why? Go ahead.
Yeah.
How are we going to keep interrupting?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It redirects the flow of whatever is happening. And it was how I learned to do my job, do my trade.
Okay.
And I guess I'm just being a contrarian. I feel like I am asking questions, even if I'm not articulating questions. I'm not just because, as you said, I don't care. I mean, that's the way I feel. I don't care if I embarrass myself. I really don't.
You know,
But is that if that's my crutch?
well, some people, let me say this, some people can do things that are very embarrassing, and yet because of the solidity of the container around the self-centeredness is so solid that they don't feel it. Quite often people with a lot of pride takes a long time to get into, for a teaching to get in through the pride, because the pride, as the person slowly, and thank you for the question, or what your statement is, because it's helping me talk about that part of it, the part that's such a shield. And sometimes people are so full of themselves, they just think, of course, I don't have any questions. And like you just said, I don't care. Do you care? You really don't care, huh? Is that true?
Yes.
You really don't care.
I get embarrassed every day.
Okay.
And I think my follow-up was exactly what you were addressing, because I mean, everybody has their way, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a crutch, and it is a better word. You said shield. That's probably a better word.
Okay.
So how do you balance that? I mean, I know I learn better the way I do things.
Okay.
But I also know that I miss things, because everybody does. And it's always been my observation that people who ask a lot of questions miss the most.
Oh, what?
People who ask a lot of questions miss the most in my profession.
Oh, which is?
I'm a journalist.
You have a question for me? That was also everything you said was very much appreciated. So I'm not.
I know that, and I want to come up with a question.
No, come up with one later. I'll go to B.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Ian Valley.
Yes.
What kinds of questions orient or point us away from the truth?
Point us away from the truth. There isn't a question. If there's a teacher there isn't a question you can ask that will point you away from the truth. Because to the teacher, there isn't anything but the truth. Teacher's not taking positions on right and wrong, good question, bad question. Did I get close to what you're looking for, or does that just feel irritating to you?
So the way do you see all of us pointing in directions that aren't the truth?
Again?
As I'm thinking of myself as somebody who's pointed in directions that aren't the truth, and I'm coming to you looking for an orientation of guidance to point in the right direction.
Okay, so what shrink it down a little bit so I can get what you want to know.
And I'm wondering if you see us, maybe we'll just say your students pointing in all these different directions than the truth. From your perspective.
Occasionally people go this way and go that way, and I watch them. And then, but you're here, and you've been coming the direction of this teacher for, I don't know, many, many years. So what else you do is not important. The important thing is to return to the Dharma over and whatever it takes to do that. And how you do that, how Senju does that, or how Yunker, or how I do it, or how anyone does. How anyone does that is completely different than everyone else. It's your own situation. It's your own karma that's showing up, and how you work with that. Just that you've run into the Dharma, and it has magnetized you enough that you continue to come here. You receive lay precepts. You receive the Bodhisattva vow, which it says which is basically you receive a vow to and observe a vow to be with all things, to save all beings, put others before yourself. And then you just see how that's just about impossible to do. That's awareness. It's not failure. Because the failure part comes from thinking things that start, thinking relatively that things start and they end, and they do not. That is the illusion. That is spiritual materialism, psychological materialism, trying to do this to get that, do this to get that. And it's not wrong. It works that's how buildings are created, and that's how factories are run, and all of that. So what you're doing is going this way, going that way, but coming here, going this way, going that way, coming here. So it will just do that.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go up. Yeah, I have to go up too and get my stuff.
Anybody need to go up and get their stuff? It's interesting how that, how the technology at some point just starts to think itself over and over, turns things on and off that shouldn't be turned on. More? That's a really good question. Thank you. More?
Even bowing, well, I'm wondering how can the truth be perceived through our senses? And how
can the truth be received through the senses?
Perceived, yeah.
Perceived, yes, senses. It can. It's just that in order to do that, you have to see the way that is working. You have to actually see what it is, rather than just be told intellectually or conceptually. You can listen to all or read all or study all of the conceptual ideas about dependent origination and about non-duality and so on. But until that actually happens in the perception, whereas what you're seeing is what is being seen by what is seen. There's no the seer. It's not non-duality is the technical word, but that which is observing and that which is being seen are not two different things. And that's an astonishing realization, and that it does not occur because the whole idea of something occurring has dropped away. The idea of a past and a future has dropped away. Concepts are still there. We still use them. We're still in the illusion with other people who are in the illusion, but the fundamental reality is beyond that. It needs to be seen. But you or me or any of us may spend some time going this way and that way, but we have a teaching to return to that, return to the three jewels, return to training your mind, because the world is extremely seductive and magnetic. It just looks so convincing. You run into somebody who's really intelligent, perceptive, and as the saying goes, has your best interests at heart. They can talk you right out of practicing the Dharma, because Dharma doesn't make any sense. More. If three of you in a row, I'll start with the first. Go ahead. Thank you for the question.
Senchu bowing. You said something yesterday. I think this is what you said in the Dharma talk, that consciousness is not biological or not a biological situation.
Not necessarily. I mean, it partakes of that. It's an aspect of it. And the breakdown is, this is what biologists are studying and chemists are studying and physicists are studying, to try to see what the individual particularity, how that works with the consciousness. We don't know what consciousness is. Go ahead and finish your question. I didn't mean to compromise you too.
Well, I think you responded to the further question, which I was wondering if consciousness is also biological.
I would say you could describe it that way, but there's no, anytime you tighten down on something, you may feel like you have a reference point. You can start to write a book. You can start a whole different kind of science if you have the acumen to be able to pull that together in such a way that it looks like something people should study. But fundamentally, there's just this, and someone who sees this has no projects on their sleeve. There's no project, as Coben said, falling apart, nothing to do. That doesn't mean that he didn't continue to do things. He did. He taught me. So as far as I was concerned, he was doing something. As far as he was concerned, he was just dancing with reality. There was no one there. There's still no one there. His body left, but he didn't go anywhere. But he's not there. There's no there-ness to it. There's no locale. More if you have it in that area.
Not yet.
So it's a realization. You're there all the time. That once it shows up, you just realize it's always been truth. You just covered it up from the time you were born until it's just stopped being covered up, and then you see it, and you realize that no one's looking at this yet. Like just Suzuki Roshi said, to him, everyone looks like the Buddha until they open their mouth. So they look, and then they show how they're trapped in their idea. They're trapped in the swamp of samsara, thinking they're this or they're that, or they're right or they're wrong, or they're all of the polarity. They buy into some aspect of it. And one who was Suzuki Roshi isn't trapped by anything. Is not concerned with what is happening, but does not miss anything. Go ahead.
So grandfathering. More and more when I ask a question, I am unsatisfied and more confused. As though you're speaking and I'm intending for you to illuminate, but there's a distance or a wall or gibberish. How do I ask a question that appears to illuminate where it is that I'm looking?
Well, you can't help but do that. If I'm your teacher, which I am, and this is your Sangha, which it is, and you're a fully ordained monk, which you've done all the committing you can do to this path. Not that I know of, formally, you can't do much more than just become a monk and then practice the rest of your life. I don't see anything to change, correct, fix, or adjust, or clarify. You don't need clarity. You don't need clarity. All you need to do is continue. Because the thing is not necessarily just with you, but with you to some extent, but with anyone else. The confusion or the understanding about what clarity is, we keep looking for our idea of clarity rather than the actual clarity. The actual clarity that the Buddha saw is clarity. And what is the clarity about? Confusion. And how do you become clear about confusion? You look at the confusion. You receive you feel, smell, taste, touch, hear, think, feel, confusion. And that's what this training is about. This is why you sit down and practice shikantaza, so you can see something coming or going in any of the mind streams, any of the consciousnesses, including the thoughts and emotions and memories, without comment. And that's very, very difficult to do, because anytime we think something, we start to think something else. We add something onto it as an apparent or assumed individual, because there's a separate body from those separate bodies. It just reinforces the illusion of otherness. And in response to your question, I would say, just continue. I'm watching you. I'm watching anyone that's close to me, and some people that aren't so close. When I say watch, I'm not watching with some kind of nosiness or curiosity about it beyond just wanting to help you, be of service to you in terms of your particular confusion or anyone's. So it's observing that. And what I'm observing with you is you're doing exactly what you need to do. It's just a matter of continuing. Just because you've been meditating for 20 years is not a credential. But it feels like it. And sometimes we even think that I've meditated for so long and I'm still going in circles and I'm still feeling depressed, or I'm still feeling. That's why it's necessary to have a teacher, so the teacher can say, these are not failures. This is how this looks. The Buddha said it, the first words, as far as we know, out of his mouth: life is suffering. Thank you for that. Because otherwise you keep thinking part of it's suffering and part of it's not. And you get caught in that Coney Island of the mind, just with a big entertainment center that keeps you from seeing your true nature. I want you to see your true nature. I don't give a shit if you become a Buddhist or not. I want you to see, if you're here, you're listening to me, that's my motivation. I want you to see what this is and who you are. And those are not separate. More?
So Graham, bowing, if I'm noticing the distance of an auditory or listening sense door, would you want me to continue to look at that, or perhaps instead switch to what? Using my eyes or feeling my body while you're responding to me?
If I'm hearing you, if I'm understanding, relative to what you're talking about, I'm saying you could flash on sense of touch. If you feel like that when you ask me a question, if you become destabilized, say, or you start to lose any reference point, including the robe you're wearing in the room you're in, is that what you're saying? Then you could just, but don't maintain it. You're here, just go to one of the senses and then flash on it and then let it drift. Then lose everything, let everything go. Even my voice. Do not concentrate. You do not have to understand or even hear what I'm saying. It's not, so I need that kind of a question, or I can't say that. I'm not going to give that in a talk, but the way you're asking it, I'm hearing what you're saying, others are hearing what you're saying, and they're seeing the way I'm relating to you as a student. Nothing has to be maintained. Yet they don't have to accomplish anything. Just continue. At some point, there's no path. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. Everything is falling apart. Ondo.
Ondobang, you said some people who are liberated will not have questions. What do you mean by liberated?
No reference points in you. They're not on any, they're not locked on an identity here, or an otherness over there, or a location, or a time, or spatial situation, or anything in the abstraction we call time. So therefore, if you bring to that person any situation with your broken lawnmower or anything, then they'll just relate to that where it's at. But they relate to it very directly because they're not separate from it. If you go away and they're sitting on a stool in the back of their garage, when you go away, nothing continues. They're not thinking about what you were wearing, not thinking about your tone of voice. Nothing is continuing after that. Just present. They're just there. And they're not bored. Nor are they entertained. They're not separate from anything. It may sound a little, romantic or magical. It is not. Magical is an exceptional situation. This kind of magic, Trungpa Rinpoche tried to use that word and called it ordinary magic. That's because it's, you eventually notice how outlandish everything is, and it never goes away. And so it becomes ordinary. So everything is ordinarily outlandish, astounding, but it's not a polarity. More?
Ondobang, so then what about someone who has a deep understanding? Will they still have questions? I mean, I'm looking at like what comes before liberation.
The deep understanding can go away. It works pretty good. It's like the ladder works really good. There's rungs. There's what are these called? Rails, or there's another word for the things that hold rungs together. Like if you take those off, you notice the rungs don't collapse into each other. This is with the Dharma. This is not with a regular ladder. You can't do that with a regular ladder, or at least you should. Please don't experiment. I started using a term. Eric, or not Eric, but Chogadao will remember that one rung ladder. So it's just, there's just one situation and it's not separate. And since it's not separate, it's not even one. It's just that. That needs to be done by everyone. Please do that. 20 years from now, if you happen to be here, remember that. Just see what this is yourself. See it yourself. Don't add, subtract, divide. Just see, yes.
When say bowing, how do we practice seeing with something other than the intellect?
Pardon me?
It seems like I'm good at seeing with my intellect.
Yeah.
How do I see with or understand with
Just
something
continue with the intellect.
outside my intellect?
Yeah, just continue with the intellect, but interact with other people who are working with it on the same way, including a teacher. So we have several people. I could give you a list of names of people that you could talk to about the Dharma that would really put your intellect on the spot, because they're so incredibly gifted, you'd say it that way, or hampered by. It doesn't make any difference. Either way, gifted, hampered, however you want to say it, by that. But the teachings need to come across with language. You can't just be Ramana Maharshi and sit back on your divan and have people come and sit in front of you and just have this wonderful experience of reality sitting in front of the guru who doesn't talk. Seems to be you have to talk about it, but you don't have to change anything. Continue. Return to the vow. You're wearing a rock suit. Continue to the vow. Be with all things. Be with all things. Whatever shows up. And the way you practice that is notice how you can't do that. Notice it's not failure. It's awareness. Noticing how something is showing up that is happening in your work environment or your relationship environment that's very negative, and notice how difficult it is to just feel that thinking about it. And then you notice you start thinking and analyzing and sorting it out, picking and choosing. And then if you can, receive that and just be with that. So it'll tend to back up in different ways with each person. But if you return to that right in the middle of feeling like you're backing away from something, you're refusing something, then if you can, just return to the vow. This is something, and it's like you just turned it into something that you're not going to run away from that. You're not going to cover it up with your commentary or your elaboration. Just going to be with that. It's like hugging a really, really ugly, smelly teddy bear. Teddy bear stinks. It's like that. It's something you love, but it's something that's painful. Personal truth. Life is suffering. It's hard. More. But
When you're bowing. Earlier, you talked about, let me put it this way, when we're in front of you, you don't sense a separation. If we are confused, you crawl into our confusion with us.
I don't have to crawl anywhere. I am your confusion. And that may sound pompous and like I'm full of myself, and I am. I'm full of myself.
But I think you said that we don't need clarity. I think maybe it was just a
No, because it's a concept of idea of clarity that keeps stopping us from actually having actual or being actually clear, because we keep looking for the confusion, try to become clear about it. It's just stress. We stress ourselves, but that's because the ego, that part of the consciousness we call the klesha mind or the ego mind, wants to be included in this accomplishment of awakening your awareness, and that goes on for quite a while. It can go on for a long time and actually continue the circularity we call samsara. So the ego, it will operate there. You have a teacher, you have a teaching, and if you have a community, all three of those are very, very important. If you try to just have a teacher or just have a teaching, just read books on your own. I'm not saying you couldn't have a realization. Sure, you could. It's always possible, but less likely without those three jewels. Yes.
So I think you've also said confusion is not separate from clarity. Confusion is clarity.
Yes.
So are you saying that when we are face to face with anything or anybody that looks like confusion to us is actually clarity?
Yes. I'm saying that.
And so what distinguishes the clarity?
We think if it's rough or stressful or painful or any of that, that must be wrong. You need to go away from it.
And we call it confusion then?
We could, yes, call it confusion. I have to get away from that. I have to become more clear about that. Yes.
When you also, when you were in front of you, let's say in a Dokuzan, and you say there's nothing else. It's just whoever's there. And it's just presence. But what if the student starts to daydream about what you've said? Is that still just presence?
They're sitting in front of me.
Yes.
Well, you can't really say that unless you've been aware of it. Aware that you're doing that. You mean someone's sitting there and they start to drift off or they fall asleep?
No, just start thinking about something else.
I think that's what Sober was pointing to a little bit, weren't you? Oh, just another form of ignoring. But eventually we start to see how that keeps going away. And that's an area that just needs to be observed and watched. Do not fix anything. Don't fix it. And that's where that if you begin to with some practitioners, that area of just allowing that failure to happen over and over and over again is the beginning of something that shows up in the consciousness that could be called humility. It's just realizing you're nobody, you have no say-so about anything, and you're what's the conventional cultural word? You're a loser. That's you. So I would have to say that's true here. Not that I'm so humble, but it's about losing the need for a reference point or the need to know anything or have any kind of relative value, particular.
When you first had your interview with Chogyam Trungpa at I don't know, Shambhala Mountain Center or wherever it was, and you sat in front of him, you said, I believe his presence was overwhelming, or it made your mind stop.
It was for me. That's how I would describe it. I couldn't think. It was just a powerful teacher. Very powerful teacher. So you notice how we'll make a statement, go no, and then we go yes. Sometimes people will even say, yeah, no.
Yeah.
You ask, say something. Yeah, no. And God, what is that? You're done. Shoka's wants to tell me something.
I'm just curious about what that presence is or was. I think you said it went fine, and then he made a comment to keep sitting, and you said, "Oh, you bet," and then right away he mocked you. So what I'm getting at here is, for me, sometimes there's fear of asking a question that could result in
being mocked
or having you bark at me or something in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And the embarrassment of that is devastating.
I bark at a lot of people.
So is that how you felt when you were with Chogyam
So,
Trungpa?
something like that. But I don't necessarily know, but I don't think he planned anything. I think he just was not separate from anything. So he was able to function. What he did was completely appropriate to what I needed. And same with Coben. Coben was an astonishing teacher who taught with not much. He didn't say much. Mitch.
Mitch Bowing?
Yeah, you're Mitch.
Well, you said Shoka a second ago. You're going to call him next. So I caught off guard.
Nothing in that.
Okay. So true. Okay. 3 questions. All right. The first one pertains to 3 questions. The first one pertains to something that was brought up and asked earlier, and it was the direction and whether we're facing in the direction of truth with our questioning. And then you followed into a liberated being and having no reference point. And I guess my question was your comment on no reference point and kind of, I guess, were you drawing attention to liberation as the awareness of the duality of a reference point and a being looking at truth?
Simplify your question. I'm tracking you to some extent, but
Okay.
I'm falling off the edge of the bridge you're building.
That's fair. is there truth in a reference point or in a direction?
Yes, it's truth there, relative truth.
And there's lies in a direction, duality,
Lies.
or well, I mean, truth and lies being
Yes,
the duality.
any kind of positionality or direction is full of relative truth and relative lies and relative untruth. It's just flooded with illusion.
And so would being receptive to and having the awareness of those things lead to no reference point or no direction?
As long as you don't add to the illusion or delusion. And if you do add to it, and then just be aware of that.
Mhm.
And if you don't try to modify it or change it or get on some kind of a self-improvement situation, which can be relative, you can actually get better, feel better. So going to a therapist or something like that can help you. There are all kinds of techniques. Cognitive behavioral work is going to be very valuable to people, as can everything, brain spotting, just so many different things. What's the other one, the more advanced or more, the one that brain spotting came out of?
EMDR.
Yes, that one. That one can be, it's powerful, but it's pretty aggressive. It goes right in and starts to grab things by the tail before you've actually had the awareness to be able to handle what you're about to reveal, like pulling stuff out of the past that has happened to you. So here, this happened to you. How does that feel? That's the truth. Here, just accept that.
Trauma.
Intense brings the trauma back with no way of working with it. No mind training. Need to go slow and slowly get to know ourselves and work with that trauma that's been so intense 30 years ago, whenever it was, or 13 lifetimes ago, which is not the same, but it's also not different. It's done with awareness.
Well, my second, thank you. My second question, I'm reading the Shambhala, the Sacred Path of Warriorship, and Chogyam Trungpa talks about fear into fearlessness by looking at your fear. And I guess I was just curious your experience, or if you could.
What do you want to know? What's the question?
What does that look like? How does that going from fear to
I
fearlessness?
can tell you in a couple of words.
Yes.
It might take a while to understand what it is. I'm using words to point to that really is impossible to describe.
Mhm.
There's still fear. The fear can come up, and it can come up even more intense, but there's no one who's afraid. There's no personhood anymore. The fear is dependently risen. This illusion we're in is dependently risen. So the good things, the bad things, the neutral things are going to continue to have their way. And with someone who has no belief in a central system, a center or fringe, no ego. The ego's there, but it's also unreal. Then there could be really, really intense, even terror, but no person. So therefore the reactivity, there's no one to react. So it's just consciousness. So the consciousness just you may leave the room. You may do something different. You may watch a movie, you may do something to distract yourself, but it wouldn't necessarily be reactive so much as it would be participation with what's happening there. And there still can be intense polarity, especially if the person who has, say, 10 years ago or 100 years ago or further has somehow awakened to their true nature, then they're still going to live. Karma is still there. There's a story called Sokuzan's Fox, where I can't remember exactly how it all went. Do you remember how that goes? So something where he kind of gets kind of puffed up because he kind of has realized, but he kind of thinks that he's kind of beyond karma, which is impossible to be beyond karma. So you are the karma that is arising. If that realization is overwhelming, because it actually is telling you there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do, there is no right, there is no wrong, but there's intense suffering. Fundamental realization, and one who realizes that probably, even without a vow, probably going to want to help others who ask for help, but not necessarily. A lot of fear, no one is afraid.
Third question was about my meditation practice. I know Shikantaza required, or you look at a wall. I mean, sit still, hold the body. Is the wall a requirement, or could it be a body of water? Could it be a tree? Could it? I mean, is it or
Could be something that move if the movement is regular like water or tree, there's not much happening there, some leaves moving, that's fine. It'll only be entertaining for about 3 weeks. But you have to sit there for 3 weeks. Any further questions?
thank you.
Shokugan, what does it mean to see the truth when I don't want to awaken?
When you don't want to awaken? I don't know. What's your problem? You're a monk. Want to take those robes off and give them back to me?
Shokugan, it's more of just looking at this aspect of consciousness arising where I don't want to look at whatever is the truth.
That's also awareness, as long as you continue to return. Return to the wall, return to the teacher, return to the teaching, return to the community, no matter how it feels. And return to the First Noble Truth if you have difficulty understanding, and realize that you're studying the Buddha's Dharma. 2,500 years of teaching. That's what you're studying. And even though when you receive vows, you may have felt like you're beyond that now, and now you realize that's too big of a chunk of life to bite off. You might be returned to just being a truck driver. Forget the road. If you can't come to me and talk to me about it, I would receive that road back from you, but not before talking to you quite a bit about it, so you can see what you're doing. Don't miss your life. And I'm very biased when it comes to this. So this is one way of not missing your life. Actually, the Buddhist path is a way of training your mind to see what this is before this so-called being, physical contraption that digests food and all the other things that happen in the human form, consciousness and so on. Before that all goes back into the elements and you lose the illusion of your separate person. I'm this person and I have this opinion, this idea, and I'm really good at this. I have this kind of ability or talent, but I'm compromised over here. We have all these conversations, these descriptions of who we are, what we're doing, where we're going, and it's unreal. But we use that as our support. We know who we are. We live as if we're a separate being. It's just an astonishing illusion to watch people live as if Milk is somebody who drives a forklift. No, you drive a forklift. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How many teeth on a forklift? How many teeth? 2. Those aren't teeth. Delusion. What am I saying? I'm just saying we get so trapped by I'm here and it's time for me to be at work and I'm a little bit late, and we start to use all of the variables in our life, other people and situations, to continue to reinforce this illusion. But this isn't real. And every night we completely drop out of this illusion for another illusion. And you don't spend much time really thinking about it other than saying, well, that was an interesting dream. And we come right back into this dream. So let's awaken from this dream. I'll help you. I'm totally dedicated to helping you right up to the time I pass out of this situation. That's all I'm here left to do. But if you want my help, I'm here. If you don't, do something else. This is your karma. This is a big deal from the point of view of a lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. You and I have been meeting. That took me a long time to realize that, what this was about for this meeting. So, yes.
Shokugan, what is the resistance or the turning away?
What's the resistance? Fear. Fear of losing that temporary reference point of me, who's having this feeling or that feeling, or being angry or upset, or this is not going my way, or this is going my way. All of the reference points. There's nothing happening. If you think things are occurring, coming and going, thank you for the question. This is an illusion. It is completely an illusion. It's not just kind of illusory. No, it's an illusion. This is an illusion. That's not real. That's one part of the illusion banging against another part of the illusion. Proves nothing. Want some proof? Complete, total, complete, unconditional confidence in what this is. But you have to see it. And I'm not talking about my body. I'm talking about yours. You may have to look this direction to understand what I'm saying, but it's find it here in yourself, within yourself, sit symmetrical, hold still, receive all, no matter what arises in your mind, and do this hour after hour. Do it day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, for the rest of your life. Now, I could even say until you're liberated, but I don't have to say that, because at some point you just won't meditate anymore, because meditation, so-called meditation, post-meditation, they're not different things anymore. There are no different things. They're gone. And if they are there, in the sense of something is moving over here, not moving over here, you see that it's unreal. It's an illusion.
Sokuzan, how can there be fear and at the same time not seeing what is triggering the fear, what is looking at what the fear is looking at?
It's becoming more and more disembodied. So the fear is becoming more like it will be when this body goes away. Then that kind of fear has complete purchase on your consciousness. So that right now you're protected by your body. You have a body, nothing's happening. I'm here. You can think nothing's going on, so I'm okay. I don't know why I'm so afraid. Well, if this body goes back, I'm not condemning you to anything or threatening you. I'm just saying, experience the fear while you're embodied and see what it is. Because when you disembody, then it's more like a nightmare. It'll not be easy. Or maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe dying will be wonderful and we'll all be liberated. I kind of doubt it. Maybe. Yes.
Sokuzan, I've asked you about that area before, where feeling like if I die, it could be like a nightmare, like you just spoke about. And you respond by telling me that that's my self-centeredness, and it's not a really clear understanding of what that is.
Said a lot. I could come up here and just give one talk where I just said a lot 50 times. It really is important to do. We can talk about it some. We should. It's good to talk. Good to study the Dharma. Study all the teachings down to the lineage holders down. It's very important to do all of that together with a group, especially. But also, it's good to have questions. But the fundamental thing is we've got to sit still and look at Chisho's mountain. What Chisho's looking at. It looks out the window of the mountain. So you're asking about looking at a tree stump, or Chisho's got a mountain, don't you? So that's fine. It's the idea of having something that's not moving very much. So it can be a mountain. It can be a wall of your garage. It can be a tree. It can be a picnic table. It can be just something where you just hold still and watch. And that way, all of the other senses are engaged in the same way. Sense of smell, but there's nothing particular to smell. Sense of hearing, but nothing particular to hear other than maybe occasional birds or a motorcycle or something. But not much, not enough to engage the thinking process too much. And when you're just looking at something where not much is happening, your understanding of the otherness that is across the space between you and the eyes and what you're looking at, you begin to have an understanding that is non-conceptual. Doesn't have you might be able to describe it conceptually, but understand. Good. You understand? Good. You didn't know. Yes.
Well, so that was why I wanted to ask, because I've been running down to the local beach playground at night, like 11 o'clock or whatever, and I sit and I stare at the waves for 30 or 40 minutes. but because there is a lot of sensory things happening, crickets, slight waves, very light movement because it's dark, but there are sounds and experiences. I was worried that, not worried, the thought was that it was distracting me from my thoughts because there was so much clarity and peace
The only
in those
thing
bits.
the only thing I would address in your question is you're not staring. Not staring at it. You just look at it.
Mhm.
Just not staring. That word is, you're not actually doing that anyway, so no point in even using that. Just look at the waves and don't maintain it. Don't maintain. If you're looking at the wall, then look at the bumps on the wall. But don't maintain anything. That's it.
Michael Bowing, I think I came up with a question that I was trying to ask from the beginning, but that's why I don't ask questions because it takes me forever to go around and around and figure it out. But
Understand.
and I could be wrong, but I have a conviction.
Oh, wait. You're wrong.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
All right.
I don't want to admit my conceits, but I feel like we often ask the wrong questions to the things that are troubling us most. And I'm very judicious about questioning. And again, that could be a shield. I guess the question is, how do I put up a pretty strong filter before I ask a question because I don't like asking what I think is the wrong question. How do I get there? That where the question is on the tip of my tongue and not buried around circles and circles and circles of words trying to explain to you what I'm about to ask.
I think you're fine.
All right.
You just continue to do that. Be aware of it. You see, be very aware of that whole structure going around and around, and that you're aware of you tuned into the word shield I use, which is good. And then you talked about filter or some kind of scrim in front of everything.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. And the other thing I would say is meditate a lot and do the kind of meditation, at least close to what I teach, which is eyes open. Don't add, subtract, divide, don't do anything with it, but just receive everything that's showing up in the vision, in any of the sense fields, including your mind, without comment. And noticing how we can't do that as a training, not so much accomplishing some kind of Vajra like samadhi or something.
Did you ever see the movie I, Robot?
I did.
I just love that hologram.
Yep.
My
Yeah.
responses are limited. You must ask the right question.
Isn't that Asimov?
Yeah.
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 My responses are limited.
Looks like yours with AI.
I love to talk to AI. I don't.
Yeah.
AI. I love to go into gender talk because it keep telling you it has no gender. So I try to play around with it. It's just fun to know that someone has created that situation in such a way that tries to be just intelligent and have no bias at all. But it is bias. Yes, sir.
Yes, Sokuzan. Something has shown up with all the questions, and I appreciate this. How do I stay conscious to decide not to conclude? So a parable, how do I observe the flag moving and stay conscious, but decide not to conclude versus being human and saying this is a problem I must have an answer to for this process or my job or whatever.
Yeah. So don't maintain anything, fall apart. Just let it all fall apart. The important thing, here's the instruction. Sit down, hold still, without maintaining it. If you start to get in pain, pay attention to that pain. Don't disregard your body and try to have an artificial stability. It's just been around for centuries and it's just not helpful. Might have been helpful in the medieval times when there was a different kind of a relationship between the society and all these macho meditators, but not necessarily. You can actually move and then come back to the stillness. So the idea there is to return rather than maintain. Your eyes, you get droopy, fall asleep, and then when you come up, if you notice that you're not able to be this or watch this, and that disappears, and you go into a daydream or something, just observe it. Just be genuine. Whatever's showing up, that's it. There's nothing to fix or correct. You just have to do a lot of that. And when I say my example of that is 30 plus years before I began to even function like a teacher. Before then, I would just teach people how to meditate, but not be able to really. I mean, I could respond to their questions, but I knew I should shut up. I was not a teacher. I didn't understand. And now, do I understand? I don't know. I don't have a position on it. But if you have a question, I probably will respond. Very good. I'll take one more.
Milka bowing question on YouTube from Ath.
I'm not going to take.
Death is coming or disappointment awaits. How to get consistently motivated to watch the mind at the lowest point or lowest moments of life?
Just schedule yourself. You don't have to worry about the lowest moments of life. The lowest moments of life, go take a break. Go to the little movie. This idea of meditating when you're miserable, not a good idea. Meditate. It's like when you're really, I don't know how to say it without saying something that people have so many opinions about, like eating good food or something. There's a lot of opinions there. But try to meditate every day, no matter what. And that way, when the difficult times, you may have to stop so that you can go to a movie or something, or go for a walk, or do something different. But try to get as much sitting and as much holding still, training your mind to see clearly, so that when you do get into those difficult times, it is the mind that is looking at those has held still a lot. And when I say hold still, not maintain, but just return to the stillness, return to the stillness, return to the stillness.
Hi, my name is Shoka. I am a monk at SokukoJi, where I'm committed to training my mind under the guidance of my teacher, Sokuzan. We rely on your support for our programming, including a scholarship fund to cover living and tuition costs for those who are practicing full-time at the monastery. Thank you for your generosity.